Jeff, let's jump over to the other side of the world, for it is the first week of the England season. Before going to the county championship, though, England have announced yesterday what we all knew to be happening. Charlotte Edwards will be the new England women's coach. Overwhelmingly obvious candidate. She's been a success machine as coach, both in England and in India. You know, no one's played more times for England than her as well. 300 plus caps for her country. She knows every inch of this setup. It's a gig she's wanted, clearly. And it's not clear to me whether she's going to keep some of those T20 gigs around the world. That wasn't in the release yesterday. But what we do know is that it's Charlotte Edwards all the way. She spoke in her comments yesterday about the excitement of an Olympic Games on the horizon at Los Angeles and all the rest of it. So, yeah, I think that she's thinking long-term here.
Highly qualified, staunch, stern kind of person. She's going to have to bring that sternness, though. She's going to need to clean out, not necessarily personnel-wise, not necessarily go in there and get rid of everybody, but she's got to get rid of baggage. She's got to get rid of this kind of connection to a previous era, which still exists through her as well. A lot of the players who are playing now are players who were there when she was playing. You know, this England setup has been there's been so little movement. There have been new and younger players who've come through, and more over the last few years as the domestic setup's developed. But there are still a lot of players who are connected to that previous era, and there is a sense of jadedness, tiredness, kind of lack of enthusiasm, confidence, drive. Something that over the last 3 or 4 years, I would say, maybe even a bit more with this England women's team, they've been stepping down in terms of those sort of indefinable things about vibe and energy and atmosphere that haven't been there for this side. So that's my only question is somebody who is still connected to a previous life of this England side and who a lot of these players will remember as a teammate, are they the person who can come in and refresh things and clean it out and make it feel different, like we're doing something else now, we're breaking from what we've done in the past, we're moving towards the future? Can you have that feeling with someone who is so familiar to the setup? I don't know if you can, but if you're looking for the most qualified person in terms of the CV, that's her. But I think that's the task ahead of her, is how does she bring a sense of freshness when she's also part of the legacy?
The only thing I'd add is that when I've worked with her as a pundit, she's always been happy to say exactly what she thinks. So yeah, she hasn't been one of those.
She doesn't hold back.
No, so I don't think that, like, yes, she's held in very high regard. You know, Queen Lottie and all that, right? People love her in English cricket and they respect her. But I don't think that she's done it by being a soft touch. So I think that she'd be pretty relaxed about getting in there and tearing shit up if she sees fit to do so. But we should get her on. It's kind of weird that we've never had Lot on the show. We'll focus on that once she's got her feet under the desk. I'm sure she'll be happy to come on and have a chat with us at some stage in 2025. Jeff, let's begin our quick wraparound of England cricket because we have time to just acknowledge that, yes, the championship is starting. We'll be giving detailed and comprehensive coverage to that from next week. We've got some great games in Divi 1. Essex playing Surrey. I reckon they'll be the two teams to beat in the top flight. Hampshire hosting Yorkshire, returning to Division 1. Notts have got Durham. Somerset hosting Worcester. And Warwickshire hosting the other promoted team, Sussex. And in Division 2, Derbyshire, Gloucester, Glamorgan, Leicester, Northants, Kent, and Middlesex, Lancs. Unfortunately, Jeff, I can report to you, because it came out this morning that Jimmy has done his calf and he can't play the first month of the season. So he won't be taking the field at Lords against Middlesex as we thought he might. He did it in the last week of training in Spain last week. He's done all the work and done all the preseason and all the rest of it. He's been totally fine. In the final week of preseason, Jimmy's done a calf niggle. So they're going to take the safe approach with a 42-year-old and give him a few weeks to recuperate and unleash him in May. But he was quoted yesterday saying that he's open to playing 3 seasons for Lancs, which would take him to 45. So there is still time to run for the old guy yet.
Who would have thought a 42-year-old doing a calf? My calves get sore sitting on a plane, just not doing anything else.
Have you bought the? Have you done the very 40s thing of buying some compression socks?
No, haven't.
I have.
Yeah, okay.
I've got the big compression socks now for the calves on the flights.
Ever since Steve Waugh had his deep vein thrombosis.
Just hearing those words makes me feel sick. So, yeah, I'm taking precautionary measures. They're in my luggage for Spain tomorrow.
I saw that Kemar Roach is going back to Surrey, which is good news ahead of Australia playing those West Indies tests. Hopefully he'll be involved. You know, when Kemar Roach is involved, it still feels like it's like a connection to a previous era. It makes me feel better about the passage of time.
He's just a gun as well. Every time he bowls at the Oval with him and Worrell and Clark, and I mean, there's all of them. Overton when he's fit, they're just ridiculous. Sorry. So looking forward to being at their first game at home next week, commentating on that. Roach's 5th stint at the Oval. Ben Stokes won't play these rounds. They're going to hold him back. It kind of makes sense. There's a bit of a wrinkle here with Root and Brook not playing for Yorkshire this week in their first game back in Divi 1. It seems from the comments that Yorkshire aren't hugely thrilled about that.
Right.
I understand this. Like there's rest and there's a long season and it's trying to get it right. But like I can't see a scenario where Stokes plays much at all until he needs to, because his body is a game-to-game proposition now, isn't it?
I thought you were going to say his body is a wonderland, and it is in the sense of an amusement park that is abandoned and falling to pieces.
Yeah, Wobby's World.
Yes, your body is a Wobby's World. Ride the helicopter. Johnny Bairstow will be playing though. He's captaining Yorkshire, so that could go. That could be very interesting. That could go any one of a number of ways.
So that was quite an emotional press release as well. I was quite touched by that. His dad captained Yorkshire for a long time, and Johnny always talks about how important that part of his life is with his late father. So wish Johnny well. He said during the week he's dead keen to get back in the Test team, and you know what? He probably will. Like you're going to see a world where Bairstow gets back at some way or another, plays yet another Test for England and another Ashes series perhaps. At the end of the year. Issues with the 100 sale. I don't really know what's going on here, but it's to do with the TV rights. A few of the Indian buyers are not thrilled about what's being suggested over the sale of the next TV rights deal. So the top brass have been over in India this week trying to sort it out. So watch this space on that one. We're still due to have a chat with Will McPherson about all of this. So I might try and pencil that in for 2 or 3 weeks from now once that's all settled down and we have a better handle on what's happening there. Speaking of Indians in England, Rohit Sharma, this is brilliant. There was an ad that went on Instagram yesterday saying that Rohit Sharma wants to play 3 games of club cricket in London this year before he goes and plays those Test matches in the middle of the year against England.
Why is he there to put an ad on Instagram? Doesn't Rohit Sharma know some people in cricket? Like, can't he put the feelers out?
Well, we've gone straight to him. We've put a video straight out from ODB saying, no worries, mate. Don't have to pay subs. We'll give you a cap. We'll give you some of Maxie's Sunnies, 10% off. 20 Vision. See it in the show notes if you want those sunnies as well. We said we buy him a beer. So we've sent him an Instagram video and said, you're very welcome to turn out for ADB on a Sunday afternoon. See how we go on that front. Bharat's going to send it to him and see whether we can get him down to, we've got a game against the Indian media in that window. You'd think that Rohit would love
chance to take down
Pongoing Harsha or something. I know they get on very well, but whoever it is in the Indian media, have a crack at that. Unlikely, but maybe. And last bit of England news to note, Peter Lever has passed away, the former Lancashire and England bowler, coach as well at age 84, 17 Test matches. He was an Ashes winner in 70-71, that brilliant series where Ray Illingworth's side won in Australia. He took a Test sixer in his final series against Australia at Lord's in 75, played the very first one-day international at the MCG on the 1st of January 1971. And is always remembered for the humanity that he showed when he hit you in Chatfield and how affected he was by that, and has been asked about it many times over the years. There's a nice piece from Jim Wallace that was on their blog yesterday about, he interviewed him during the pandemic and asked him about that moment with Chatfield, and he said he wouldn't have played again had Chatfield died, and it's all very intense and a focal point of his cricketing career. But so much more than that as well, as a standard bearer at Lancashire, England, a coach, bowling coach, selector at one stage as well. He kind of did everything, Peter Lever. So, died after a short illness at age 84.
One of the 2 Levers, the J.K. Lever bit with the Essex bowler, who also played for England in approximately the same year, a tiny bit later. Peter Lever, one of those names that's in so many of those stories looking back, and I think particularly that first one-day international scorecard is something that both of us have read many times, connecting with that part of the past. So the past keeps moving in the direction that it does, and farewell to Peter Lever.
You might wonder why we haven't touched the World Cricketers Association report on today's show, given it was such a big part of the news cycle during the week. That's because we're going to do a dedicated episode with Tom Moffat, who's the chief executive of the WCA. There's obviously so much in that, and a lot of it is very final word areas. So we didn't want to sort of spend 5 minutes on something that for us is probably more like a 60-minute chat. So keep an eye in the feed for that. There's so much going on at the moment, Jeff, that the next Future Tours program can't be far away from being announced, where there'll be so much more that's clear about the future architecture of the game. So hopefully this is a timely report. And just a nice one to finish, Jeff, as well, is that in his final game as a New Zealand domestic cricketer, he's still going to be playing in England at Durham, but Neil Wagner took a big bag of wickets for Northern Districts over Otago to win the Plunket Shield final. Wagner, at age 39, Jeff has always been someone we've loved on the show, and so pleased that he went out, at least as far as a New Zealand cricketer is concerned, in real style there over the weekend.
Very good. You should try to run into him over the English summer at some point if he's knocking around for Durham, and we'll finally get to have a chat about putting the ball in Steve Smith's armpit over and over and over again.
A quick break here. On the other side of it, Jeff will have a nerd pledge for us, and then we'll bounce into our conversation with Ben Jones on week 2 of the IPL. All right, it's Adam and Jeff before it'll be Ben Jones jumping in. And Jeff, you have a little bit of housekeeping to do, a story to tell briefly.
A revisit for Richard Jones. Nerd Pledge, obviously, is a game that we play with people who fund the program. They send in their contributions, their financial, their donations, whatever you want to call them. It's in a conglomeration, a configuration of currency that relates to cricket in some way. Richard Jones, $5.30. Might have been £5.30. I don't have that information in front of me. I think it was dollars. And there was a clue that related to, I don't know exactly how I got to Kim Hughes, but I did get to Kim Hughes somehow. Right. And the 100 that he made against the West Indies at the MCG. This one was quite a long time ago. It's taken a while to figure out what was going on with the revisits here. So Richard sent through some correspondence that said that we got the first half of the clue. Player is Kim Hughes. He says that the Packer Circus opened up opportunities for a young group, pick of which were Hughes and Alan Border, contrasting styles. Border with a much better record, but Hughes in full flight was great to watch. I was there for that innings. You cited an example of how Hughes could guts it out when required. But there was another part of the clue about a 100-year performance, and it wasn't the Melbourne Centenary Test. It was a different centenary test. And I think we had looked at this match and couldn't find a way to make this number work. $5.30 is what we were looking at. So 530 could be 530, could be 5 for 30, could be whatever it might be. Now, I talked on Storytime. You may not have heard it. The episode I did with Cameron Ponsonby.
I have listened to about half an hour of it, and I very much enjoyed that the Cameron Ponsonby experiment worked. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed his clip of me off the top, which wasn't unreasonable. It was fair. I did wonder whether this would suit the way he is, but God, he leaned into it. And we'll have him back for sure.
So the answer that followed that, my first answer was about a guy called Keith Rigg, who batted in the Bradman era of the 1930s, and how he was a milestone man because he had a couple of teams of 11s named after him that were for anniversaries. There was the 150th anniversary of the colony of New South Wales being settled, and there was the 100th anniversary of the Melbourne Cricket Club. And both of these anniversaries had testimonial sort of games where the Keith Rigg 11 played. He played a Stan McCabe 11 and a Don Bradman 11. So we're in a kind of era of talking about centenary tests and milestone tests a lot. And in this other era, there's obviously the 1977 one is 100 years of Test cricket. Then 1980 is 100 years of Test cricket in England. And then there's the bicentenary of Australia, the 200 years of Australian settlement test in 1988. So there are a few of these one-off matches. And so I was trying to figure out how the 1980 centenary of English Test cricket test with Kim Hughes in it related to the number. I mean, as we foreshadowed with Cam, surely there'll be an England-India centenary test in 2032, something like that. Kim Hughes, it rains through a bunch of this centenary test. So Australia make 385 for 5, and by day 3, they're like, bugger it, we better declare, despite not having a huge score. Kim Hughes makes 117 there. They bowl out England for 205. They're well on top. They go again. Hughes in the second innings makes 84. So he's close to twin tons. They're probably letting him bat on to see if he can get to twin tons, and then they declare once he's out on day 5 with about 80 overs left, 380 ahead, can't bowl England out. Jeff Boycott makes a stubborn 100 in his style. And it's often referred to that Kim Hughes bats on all 5 days of the test. A bit that I hadn't realised is that he hits 5 sixes across his 2 innings. He hits 1 6 on each of the 5 days of the test as well, which is nice and neat.
Love it.
And the 5:30 finally, we were able to figure this out, that because of the clue involving Alan Border, let's look at the fact that they batted together. They added 50 runs together in the second innings, but they added 53 runs together in the first innings. And I'm confident enough that $5.30 could be 53 Which is what those two were able to do, the two that he cited as being this exercise of contrasting styles in terms of the free flow that Kim Hughes could have when he was up and attacking, and the left-hander in Border much more inclined to grind it out, although he had the aggressive gears if and when he needed them, but he played through such a difficult era that most of the time he was just looking to survive.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Richard, for giving me the chance to vault into a new campaign on the final word. The Sesquicentenary test is happening, right? And we're thrilled about that, right? So there should, by extension, be a Sesquicentenary test in England in 2030, right?
True.
Yeah. Right? Has to be at the ground where the game was played. In 1980, they played it at Lord's, not the Oval. Mm-hmm. You can't be having anniversary matches played at different venues. And this is no reflection on my relationship with Lord's, which, as you know, Jeff, I love Lord's. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of these anti-Lord's people, far from it. Indeed, qualifying to become an MCC member at the moment. I respect the institution mm-hmm. and love what they've done for cricket, not least in recent years. This is more to do with just from a history perspective, got to play that test in 2030 rather at the Oval. And that was the first test venue in England, and Lords gets to do an awful lot of interesting, wonderful things, gets to be the custodian of the laws of the game. It doesn't miss out much, but it should miss out on this one. There should be a test in 2030 between England and Australia. It should be a one-off, and it should be played in South London. There's no reason why it wouldn't be, and I doubt the powers that be are listening to this segment, but if they are, let's get the ball rolling on this. Mm-hmm. Let's campaign for a couple of years, Jeff.
Well, and the crazy suggestion that maybe the anniversary test matches should be played as day games because, that's how 99% of test cricket has been played.
Did you see how that broke, by the way? It was like everyone who you would expect to say it should be a day game said it should be a day game, and everyone mm-hmm. you would expect saying it should be a day-night games. I mean, it's like we have our roles these days, don't we? Everyone has their role to play.
Look, and a bunch of our listeners were on the day-night train and saying, well, what's wrong with that? And I understand, cricket's different now, cricket's changed. Sure. We've only been playing day-night cricket for 10 years and we haven't been playing that much of it and no one else plays it because they don't fancy it. And it's basically the Australian board. I just think it's such a niche part of the game that if you're playing a game that is supposed to honour the history of the game, it doesn't mean you have to go out there and play with 1880s cricket bats. But if there's an easy thing to do that's going to allow something to be closer to how the game was then that seems like a no-brainer to take that opportunity.
And to respect the fact that there's going to be a lot of old people in the ground and you want them to be there for the entirety of the game. It's going to be part of the charm of that week is going to be flying in a whole bunch of 80-somethings. And yes, it's true to say that people who are 80-something can stay up till 10 o'clock at night. I'm not being discriminatory or ageist in saying that, but it is more likely that they will enjoy themselves more at the game if it's played all the way through the day.
Also,
hours.
the whole, it's going to be easier for people to watch it if it's at night. This isn't the middle of the season of the Big Bash, right? This is an event. If people can't make the effort to actually carve out a bit of time to go to the game or watch the game or listen to the game, then that's on them.
But they will anyway.
The fuck up.
And we know from 1970s,
of course they will
come
because it's enough of an event.
Numbers.
They will come.
Yeah,
yes.
Of course.
It's not going to have the same forces are not going to be at play as in why couldn't we get people to the third ODI against Sri Lanka? It's going to be a different thing. It's going to be a momentous event and people will come regardless and they will watch it regardless. So,
and we will still love it and the other thing is we will still love it regardless, right? Like it's not as though you and I are saying that this will be any less. Hey, Jeff, given I've still got you with me before Ben jumps on, I just thought we've strayed now, haven't we? We're off that pledge now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Michael Gough's no longer an elite panel umpire.
I was surprised about that. I wasn't surprised that Joel Wilson is
no
longer with us. I think reputationally he was struggling, even if statistically he wasn't as bad as people seem to think he was. But he did seem to be involved in a lot of contentious moments. Yeah. Michael Gough was pretty good, wasn't he?
I mean,
I thought he was one of the more respected, consistent umpires, was he not?
It wasn't it like Michael Gough, best umpire in the world, I'm not saying that. A lot of the time. We say that probably about 3 or 4 umpires, to be fair. But on commentary, how many times would have we just said a decision was marginal? And remember the whole bit about players didn't challenge Gough's decision for DRS? Like, it's Michael Gough, I'm reluctant to challenge it.
Right.
So Alex Wharf comes onto the elite panel. And he's from England, so it might be a one-on-one off. I don't know how they do their internal politics there with managing all the various stakeholders. But I was flummoxed when I saw that. Is there more going on beyond what meets the eye? Who knows? There certainly wasn't anything in the statement. And what I mean by that is, has he initiated this himself. I suspect if he wanted to step down, there would have been a line in the media release saying that Michael Gough has chosen to step down. So face value, he has been omitted, which is bizarre.
The most bizarre dismissal of a Gough since the 1970s.
Back to that same era. Lucky Paul Rifle survived after that close decision that he made as the TV umpire in that test match between England and New Zealand late last year. I thought Rifle was going to be rifled. For that
Breaker Moranted.
Yeah, indeed. For that decision alone. Breaker Morant played by Paul Rifle in a remake of the 1980 film. The Sesquicentenary test match followed by the remake of Breaker Morant. Kennedy Miller, where are they? Get them back out there. Get the tax break back. It's that time of year. There's promises. It's election season. Let's bring back the tax loophole that meant so many great films were made in Australia. You know, I was talking about, we're fucking away now, aren't we? I was talking the other night about Gallipoli with a mate and so when we're in Barcelona, I said to a buddy of mine that we'll try and carve out some time to watch Gallipoli. Then this is Ollie Bellwood, who's a friend of the show, played for the Final Word before. Whether we can, find an hour and a half. What are your legs? Steel Springs.
Steel Springs.
What are they going to do?
Why Barcelona? Why does Barcelona bring Gallipoli to mind?
No. We're going to be together over there, and we were at the pub the other day, and we were talking about the final scene with that piece of music. It's called. I'm going to say the name of it wrong and embarrass myself, but it ends with in G minor. I know that bit, and I said it to him. I kind of stumbled through it. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know that piece of music. I've used it in a podcast before. I'm like, of course you fucking have. But he hadn't seen Gallipoli. I'm like, well, we can fix that.
It's just not thematically. Like, why aren't you watching Vicky Cristina Barcelona? Like, why don't we have something that's more on theme?
What we'll probably be doing is singing at the television, plugged into YouTube when we're having a beer or two before going out between games of cricket and going to the massive mega club Razzmatazz, which I'm sure will be on our agenda.
You should be watching the 6th season of Cobra Kai set at the World Karate Championship in Barcelona, where the most random, pointless montage I've ever seen. It's like one day before the final, and they're like, we need to change up our training techniques. And then they just do a bunch of shooting training sessions in front of Barcelona landmarks. They're like, we just need to do sparring in front of La Sagrada Familia, because Gaudi, the inspiration of Gaudi. And then we're going to run up the mountain. We're going to go up to the Mirador and run up and down in front of the castle. I'm like, you've got like 18 hours before your fight. I don't think this training is really going to push it over the edge.
There's so many options. They can get up on the diving board, the famous diving board from 1992. Indeed, let's take it one step further. They can go into lane 6 where Linford Christie won the 100 metres and do some sprint work. I'm going there on Saturday night, actually, because Barca are no longer playing at New Camp or Camp Nou, whatever it is. That's being renoed. So we're off to the Olympic Stadium to watch Barcelona play on Saturday
Barcelona
night.
Are playing at Cusack for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'm hoping Linford Christie's there. I mean, that'd be a real thrill if he was. I doubt it. Last time I saw Linford Christie, he was doing something where he was swimming the English Channel on telly, and he couldn't swim, and they were trying to teach him how to swim, then swim the channel. It felt ambitious to me at the time.
It was at
the
least
conceit of the television show was risky.
If you can find a packet of twisties, you can. It was one of my early formative memories of you saying, "Just going to pop in for a pack of Linford Christies."
It also works on something else as well.
It does, yeah.
Hold the art. Now, where are we? Are we finished?
You're finished, yeah.
I've got to get Ben Jones on the line because otherwise I'll run out of time for him to tell me what's going on in the IPL. We'll finish our bit here. Great to have Maurice Blackburn back. Love that. Odin Mortgage and Tax. Our patrons who we love. Patreon.com/thefinalword. Without you lot, it's irrelevant. The rest of it doesn't happen anyway. We don't have any commercial partners to find because we don't have a show. So jump on there, get Max here to call you. As I'm sharpening that up as well. We've gone from Zoom to a phone call, whatever. Get Maxi involved, get your ad-free feed, etc., etc. Join the Discord crew. We're running a park run next week around the Oval before the first week of cricket at the Oval. We're going to do a park run around the corner from there for the Edinburgh lot. It's all happening over there. So patreon.com/thefinalword and join our community. I can release you, I think, Jeff. I think your duty is done.
Into the wild. I would like a freshly spawned salmon swimming upstream or downstream. I suppose they spawn upstream, don't they? And they swim down. Anyway, that's me. I'm off to the sea. I'll see you later.